talking a little bit about the Lions and free agency. ESPN put out a list of the top free agents and where they fit best. And the Lions, according to this, are the best fit for Marcus Williams, a safety out of New Orleans, which would be, I think, a really good signing for them. Really good. 24-year-old, 13 picks in 4 years in the league, and he's played for Aaron Glenn in New Orleans, and obviously Dan Campbell was there as well. So that's a good start.
Well,
okay.
To me, that's the biggest part. To me, is the familiarity with what the defense will likely be. I mean, Aaron Glenn coached him up in the secondary. Now he's the defensive coordinator with the Lions. So I think you'd want to have somebody that has that kind of familiarity with it. And I've talked for years that safety is such a key position to me. When you look at some of the great defenses throughout the years, when you think about one of the greatest defenses was in Baltimore. And, yeah, Ray Lewis was there, but you can't forget Ed Reed. And I think I always thought if we could find our Ed Reed, there you go. And, I was a big Jamal Adams fan, hoping the Lions could somehow find a way to get him, but obviously that wasn't going to work out. So I want a really good safety, and if this can come in, I'm not saying Williams is in that mold of those guys, but if Aaron Glenn thinks that this is a guy that can help lead our defense, then let's go with it.
Well, at the age of 24, he's off to a really good start to his career, minus the one play. All right, so the number 38 free agent is best projected fit for Detroit. It's an edge rusher. And his name, Gator, is Romeo Okwara.
Yeah.
They say a team with minimal pass rush should work hard to retain the one player on the roster who gets consistent pressure on the quarterback. Trey Flowers will be back with guaranteed money on his 2021 deal, and a healthy campaign from him, coupled with Okwara, is a good start for Detroit's new defense. Also watch for New England, where Matt Patricia, who helped develop Okwara for 3 seasons in Detroit, is an assistant. I was gone one day, and you were in. And I remember that, I came back, I don't know, it was the next week or the next day, and we were kind of talking about this. And Khang said, do you want to get into this free agent thing? Because Gator would actually prefer Okwara to Golladay coming back. Do you have an opinion on it? So I'm going to presume, I don't know if you moved off that position, but are you still feeling that way?
No, I absolutely feel that way. I think Okwara, if you're going to, between those two, I'd take Okwara all day over Kenny Golladay because because you can find receivers everywhere. You can't find edge rushers everywhere. And the season Okwara had, it wasn't just, lucking into double-digit sack totals. He earned it. He was in the backfield an awful lot. He was getting tons of pressure on the quarterback, and he's ready to enter the prime years of his career, and he's probably going to cost you something, but I think it's worth taking a shot on. I mean, there's no guarantees he's going to be continuing in this progression in his career, but I like the idea, and I wonder if having his brother Julian, who's ready to begin his second season with the Lions, I wonder if that's any added incentive for him to want to stick it out with Detroit at least for a couple of years, maybe you sign a 2 or 3 year contract, see where things are, and go from there. But I think it's very smart and wise that the Lions would re-sign it.
Well, here's the other thing about this. Gator, we're in a very unique draft year. Do you remember ever when we had a draft where the Lions have a top 10 pick, and it doesn't feel like there's an edge rusher projected to go in the top 10?
No, it does not, and it is very strange that you don't see that. In fact, it's kind of strange that really you're kind of only seeing maybe one defensive guy going in the top 10. Maybe a second if you add one of the corners in there, but it really, you only see Micah Parsons' name mentioned in the top 10. The rest are quarterbacks, wide receivers, maybe a tight end in Kyle Pitts, and an offensive lineman.
Now, I'm not, it's because of the market. You're not going to fill every hole in your football team in one off season. You're going to fill a bunch of them, but you're not going to fill them all. And so maybe it's not that huge of a deal that there's no top 10 edge rushers in this draft
right now.
But here's another factor that you got to consider in the Okwara market. If we're debating Golladay versus Okwara, what should be the priority? Golladay is the number 1 wide receiver listed. Now, in reality, maybe he's not the best free agent wide receiver, but you can make a case for it, and certainly somebody has. Romeo Okwara is the 8th edge rusher listed. So he's not setting the market right? You're talking about probably spending less money on what in this day and age in this game is probably a more important position. Now, do we believe in Okwara? And do we believe that the reality is you don't want to sign a guy who's not going to be playing at a high level when you're ready to win? Like the Lions aren't ready to win next year. There's just no doubt about that. What do you project Okwara to be in 2 years, in 3 years? Do you think he's still going to be a guy that came into his own this year, had a 10-sack season? Will he still be doing it at 28, 29, and 30? That's certainly possible. But you mentioned the kind of sacks he had. The last time he had a high sack season, which I think was 2 years ago, he had 8.5 maybe. But when you went back and looked at him, there was a lot of guys getting flushed out of the pocket right into his lap. That wasn't the case this year. You mentioned it. You're right. He earned them. So
yeah, and there's something else that I like too, and that's the coach and part of the coaching staff. And they just hired the defensive line coach as the former D-line coach and D coordinator at Jacksonville back when they were Saxonville, when all they were doing is rushing the quarterback when they had some talented players. So what can this coach help to develop him? Can they help? Hopefully, you get a healthier Flowers on this team, and some other guys can stay healthy, and the defensive line might be able to be an asset on this team, or at least take some steps forward, because right now they're just spinning their heels or going backwards.
Well, when I first heard that this was your position, I was like, I don't think I'm on board with that. But as more time goes by, I'm kind of liking it, and I think it's the market, it's the draft. You mix those things together. I think it'd be good to have a veteran like him making plays. Khang, do you have any thoughts on this one? Okwara, do you prefer Okwara over Golladay, or do you just not want either of them?
I prefer Okwara, but at a good price, and I know that you could say that with any free agent, but I mean for him particularly because, he just came onto the scene with finally a breakout year. You always got to worry about the guy that does it his free agent year, right? And the market for top end guys like that is the price tag is high. I like Kenny Golladay, but I just feel like he needs his money. He wants his money, which is his right. You know, the guys play in this league for their first contract, but he was too injured last year. I feel there's other receivers you can go after. I know on that list they had Kenny Golladay as the number one free agent, right? Wide receiver. I think Godwin's better. I think you can go get a better deal on an Allen Robinson. I think, but I mean, those guys are probably maybe not Godwin, but Robinson's probably looking to win somewhere. So he's probably not on the Lions' target, but I think Godwin. There's other guys that are better than Golladay for me, and if you can get them at cheaper rates, then I'd rather go that route than Kenny G.
Yeah, I think the price, you're 100% correct. You just hope that his agency, which by the way is Jay-Z's agency, that he's not asking for the sun and the moon, that you can get him at a reasonable price. So 248-539-9797. The last thing from this list that was interesting is Marvin Jones. He is not coming back to Detroit, according to this. The best fit for Marvin Jones, and he checks in at 41, is the Miami Dolphins. So you mentioned Miami earlier for Golladay, Gator. So